If you are looking to upgrade your car audio system with a three-way set of components that achieve incredible, detailed, and rich sound at an immense value, this set right here, the Gladen Audio RS 165.3, is worth taking a look at. If you're not familiar with Gladen, they are a German audio company that is known for their commitment to precision engineering and sound reproduction. In their speaker lineup, you will find quite a few different offerings, from the high-end aerospace drivers to the Zeta line, which we recently also covered, all the way down to the Alpha line, which is designed as a simple speaker replacement only style upgrade. Now, the RS line isn't new to Gladen. It's actually now in its second generation with improvements and optimizations to achieve even more detailed sound at an excellent value. With many different sizes throughout the line, you are able to easily build a full system. Quick side note here, there's also a 200mm, which is an 8-inch component woofer available. But in this video, we are going to be focused on the three-way kit. Let's do an unboxing and go through all the specs and details. A quick thank you to Gladen Audio America for sponsoring this video and sending over this component set so that we can take a closer look. So here we have it, the Gladen RS 165.3-G2, again meaning Generation 2. You can see the packaging here is quite simple, nice and clean. Opening the box here, we first have a manual, and you'll see that this is labeled as the CR-3-way, and that's because this is actually the manual for the crossover that is included in this component set. We'll talk about this more in detail in a little bit. Let's grab this first box out of here, and when we open this up, we first have both of the tweeters. The model number on these is the 25SG G2s. Again, we'll talk about these more in detail shortly. Here's the two passive crossovers, some extra speaker wire, a variety of different tweeter mounting options, tweeter mounting hardware, and a baggie of speaker mounting hardware. Next out of the box, these are the two 80mm mid-range drivers. The model number on this being the 80RS G2s. And what is that? 3 ohms? We'll talk about that more in a minute. And the last bit of packaging out of the box here is going to hold the two woofers. These are 165mm drivers, or the most common 6.5-inch driver that we see here in the States. Overall, here is everything that's included in the kit. Nice that they also give us the speaker wire that we're going to need to run from the crossover to each of the drivers, along with all the different mounting accessories. Now let's talk a bit more about the tweeter. First off, nice that the tweeter is wired already with this long extension here. Do keep in mind that you can always modify the wiring as needed. The included lead is right around 19 inches long. Installation-wise, one of the immediate standouts about this tweeter is all the different mounting options. It comes mounted in this flush mount style cup where you would cut a hole and then you're going to flush that into the hole, and then you would hold it in the panel with this included mounting accessory. But let's say that we want to do a surface mount instead. What we can do is simply twist this. We can remove this style cup. We're going to remove this backing piece here by twisting it and pulling it off the wire. And now we can apply this piece instead, do a quick little turn to attach this in place. And now this could be a surface mount style tweeter. In this configuration, the tweeter is going to be parallel with our mounting surface, but what if we want to have it at a slight angle? Well, then let's take off this piece here and instead add this angled adapter. Once again, twist to lock this in place, and now we have an angled surface mount solution. Now this is where things get even more cool, in my opinion. We can go one step further. A lot of tweeters have the grill glued in place where you can't remove it. In the case of this tweeter here, we can do a slight turn and we can actually remove the tweeter from this housing. This is awesome. If we have a super tight mounting location that we need to mount this tweeter in, we now have some design flexibility, especially with the use of 3D printing. We could 3D print a mount that is part of our panel. Think something like a custom A-pillar or a custom sail panel. We could incorporate this small little tab lock design and easily add this tweeter. Even more flexibility here, we could just remove the grill and then reposition the tweeter into this piece, which locks into all the other pieces pieces that we talked about previously. That way, if we are mounting this behind an existing grill, we don't have two grills in the way. This tweeter does have a silk fabric diaphragm, so known for those silky smooth highs. And again, this is considered a 25mm tweeter, a 1-inch tweeter, and I love that even though it's a little bit larger than that with all of this mounting hardware, we can reduce it down to that size if needed. Another thing I really love about this tweeter is on the Gladen Audio website, we can access a full list of all the different specs along with some frequency response measurements. So this tweeter does have a nominal impedance of 4 ohms and it's rated at 50 watts RMS of power handling, but notice that 87.8 dB sensitivity, which is measured at 1 watt at 1 meter. This higher sensitivity value means even with a small amount of power, these tweeters can produce quite a bit of volume, so we don't need a ton of power in order to fully drive these to their optimal output. Better yet, look at the frequency response, the blue lines on this graph. On axis, with the tweeter pointed directly at us, the tweeter has no problems playing all the way up to 20K. Do note though that this tweeter can sound a bit bright aimed on axis, but we do have some options for adjusting that we'll talk about in a little bit. Where this tweeter excels is its off-axis performance, the dashed line, playing very linearly up to 13K or so before slowly rolling off up to 20K. This makes this tweeter an excellent choice for a mounting position where the tweeter is in a factory location that may not be aimed as optimally. Now with a resonant frequency of 1500 Hz, it makes sense that Gladen's recommendation for this driver is to play 3500 Hz on up. This will make it pair very well with the mid-range that we're going to talk about next. A quick side note here, also notice the detailed dimensions in the spec sheet. They have more than just the cutout size listed, which is advantageous for those of us that may be 3D designing a mount for the tweeter. Next up, the mid-range driver. This is an 80mm driver that works out to be a little bit more than 3 inches. If you're curious, the outside of the mounting flange is about 3¼ inch. Again, this is the Gladen RS G2, and this has a fiberglass cone material, a Nomex spider, a rubber surround, and a stamped steel basket with hole design in the side for cooling, along with a silk dust cap. These feature a 25mm voice coil, and I like that the design of these is very compact. With this tab style design, instead of having that extended circle all the way out to here, this requires a little bit less space based on where we're going to mount it, allowing it to be used in more compact applications. Taking a look at the specs here, these are 40 watts RMS with a minimum amplifier power recommendation of 10 watts RMS, but notice the impedance. These are rated at 3 ohms, helping you get a little bit more power out of a smaller amplifier. With a recommended frequency coverage of 250 Hz up to 6 kHz, there is plenty of overlap here with the other drivers in this 3-way set. This way, each driver can excel in its dedicated range of frequencies. Now the sensitivity here isn't super high, but this is to be expected of a driver that is more focused on achieving a detailed linear sound profile. Now on axis, this driver plays very linearly up to about 3500 Hz, at which point you could hand off to that tweeter. And even 45 degrees off axis, again, this driver plays quite linear up to about 3000 Hz before a very gradual roll off. Again, at which point the tweeter would be taking over anyhow. Resonant frequency-wise, this driver has an 141 Hz FS, allowing it to play quite low, covering the low mid-range down to 250 Hz with ease, at which point it hands off to the woofer for bass duties. With a QTS value of 0.97, this mid-range excels in free air or infinite baffle type applications, which means mounted in an open back style, which we usually see with A-pillars, or a car door type scenario, these will perform very well. The moving mass of 3.3 grams is quite low for a mid-range, which allows this driver to be highly detailed and articulate, all while having a solid motor strength value to maintain control over the cone. Again, note the detailed dimensions along with the bolt circle diameter. Next up, we of course have the woofer. Now again, this is a 165mm driver, which corresponds to that very, very common 6.5-inch woofer size. Much like the mid-range, there is a fiberglass cone, a Nomex spider, and a rubber surround along with that stamped steel basket. Again, we see an approximately 3 ohm nominal impedance. The resonant frequency in this case is about 56 Hz, making this woofer capable of adding the punchy mid-bass that we all desire. With a typical high-pass crossover around 80 Hz in your system design, this woofer plays again very linearly, easily up to the point that we would hand off to the mid-range. But you can see this woofer would also play quite well in a two-way application with the tweeter. Again, this driver has a light moving mass thanks to the cone design, allowing for detailed sound reproduction paired with the strong motor strength achieving control of the cone. Now let's turn our attention to the passive crossover. Now a quick explanation for you if you are new to custom car audio. A passive crossover allows you to have one channel of connections on your amplifier or on your factory system connected to this, so a positive and negative wire feeding signal into this, and this then breaks up that signal using all of these components to each of the different drivers. So for a full three-way set, we need 2 of these. One will go to the left set of speakers and one to the right. Do note though that we don't necessarily have to use this. We could also do what's called running active, which is where we would have a channel of power going to each of the speakers, and we would no longer use this as part of our system design. Obviously, going the active route requires far more amplifier channels, so it can be a bit more expensive, but there are many advantages to doing so. For our example here though, let's say that you are using the passive crossover because it's included as part of the kit. You're going to notice that along with that incoming signal into the crossover, you of course have connections to the woofer, the mid-range, and the tweeter. If we take a really close look inside here, you're going to see there are 2 sets of jumpers. Adjusting the location of these jumpers is explained in the manual here, but basically we have one for the tweeter and one for the mid-range. Remember earlier how we were talking about that the tweeter on axis could be a bit bright? What's nice with these passive crossovers is we can easily adjust that with this jumper here. And if you weren't using this passive crossover and you were running active, you could simply adjust the level of each of those different drivers individually as needed. And I of course also always recommend that you consider including a digital signal processor as part of your system to fully tune to optimal potential. So throughout this 3-way set, some really nice specs. In the vehicles I've heard in person that have these RS drivers, I would say that the level of detailed sound they can achieve is that of a much higher priced set of speakers. The conclusion here, these offer an immense value with their under $1,000 MSRP and rock-solid design features that will allow them to be reliable and easily installed. If you'd like to learn more and find a Gladen dealer near you, check out the links down in the video description. A special thanks again to Gladen Audio America and Orca Design and Manufacturing Corporation for sponsoring this video, and thank you guys for tuning in and watching.